Sarah, will you give me a thumbs up when we're in there? Well, good morning, everyone. First and foremost, my name is Kieran Swale, Tourism Innovation Specialist at Southern Regional College. First of all, our sincere apologies this morning for keeping you. You've been waiting there very, very patiently for 6 or 7 minutes. So we did have issues with just an update on Teams, both remotely and in the college. So my sincere apologies. But we're here now, and thank you for bearing with us. So I'm delighted that you're joining us as what is part of Global Entrepreneurship Week. And we're kicking that off this week with different activities in the college. And now on Thursday, our session today is setting up your first online shop, really tips and tricks to do that with our expert, Darren McSherry. Darren is an e-commerce specialist. He's a chartered marketer and he's part of our part-time business panel. Just in terms of how we're going to operate this, Darren is going to give a talk. I may interject with the odd question or two during the talk, and then at the end of it, there will be an opportunity for questions and Q&A. There is a chat box where you can submit a question, and we will endeavour to answer those at the end of the presentation. This is the first of our winter series of seminars at the Business Support Unit at Southern Regional College, and we're going to be webinar Fridays, but this is obviously Thursday. So our next one is coming up with my colleague Brian and I next Friday, actually, when we're talking about if you were using more than one camera for an event, or you wanted to pre-record or record something live. And then we have about 8 seminars going on till February. And Sarah and Ashley will be able to send you out details of that along with the evaluation. Your mics will be automatically muted. And at the end of this, then, if we see a question with a name and we are able to pull you in, we will do it. And if not, we will endeavour to resolve any questions that you have in relation to this seminar. We can try and come back to you on that. And then Sarah will be sending out evaluation. Okay, so on to today then. Have you ever thought about setting up your online shop? I know I have many times, and this should be a really informative session, both from the theoretical aspect and more importantly, the practical aspect. So Darren, if you are ready to go, Darren, I'm going to hand over to you.
Perfect, Kieran. Thank you for that. Good morning, everyone, and a very warm welcome this morning. As Kieran's rightly pointed out, this morning's content is going to be in relation to setting up your first online store. Today's agenda, what we're going to be looking at is 2 of the leading e-commerce solutions, practical considerations and steps to initial setup, how to save time and effort with smart tools, and common pitfalls and how to avoid them. Firstly, a little on me. Thank you, Kieran, for the early introduction. I'm an SRC e-commerce specialist at the college. I've got 20 years experience. I'm a chartered marketeer as well, and I've worked across 10 industry sectors at various levels, whether it be local or national level. This morning, I'm going to be working and making a number of assumptions based on the audience and assumptions that where the business or where you as an individual may be on your journey to getting online and starting your e-commerce store. So firstly, I'm assuming you've got an existing product or service already. You have a physical store presence of sorts. Also, you would be doing this yourself in terms of setting up your e-commerce store, or someone else will be doing this for you. Why go online? I think it's important we just touch on why go online in terms of the commercial opportunity and the customer and market changes that we all know about and is very much in the main at the moment in the media. E-commerce currently, well, let's have a quick look at it. We can see the graph here representative over the last 8 to 10 years. The growth is significant, and what we've seen is an acceleration in 2020 with COVID and businesses going online and transacting online as a result of the customer going online. Equally, here we see over a larger period of time, the acceleration into Q3 leading into Q4 of 2020 has been significant. And I think, in my opinion, we will see that growth continue into Q1 and Q2 of next year and beyond. Taking a look at some of the growth sectors and some of the leading sectors that are leading the charge on e-commerce, we've got sports and clothing, and we also have household goods and giftware, which is really having a growth area at the moment as well. We can see other sectors there to include accommodation, travel arrangements. Some of these maybe have been impacted with COVID and market conditions, contributing to growth into other areas. So what I'm going to look at now is two of the leading e-commerce solutions. And what we're going to look at is a simple solution, which is Shopify, and that would be very much your entry-level e-commerce solution, followed by a moderate to expert level solution, which is Woocommerce. Why would we look at Shopify, for instance? Well, it's very much a self-starter. It's a piece of software. It's a solution for first timers who are entering the marketplace for the very first time. It's a stepped process online, and we will go through some of the areas in terms of the practical setup. Why Woocommerce? Woocommerce is moderate to expert, so it's a little bit more of a learning curve with Woocommerce, and there is a little bit more detail behind that, and it would be potentially, for some, maybe a steeper learning curve than that of Shopify. Establishing which is right for you as an individual and for your business. Well, Shopify is a giant of the e-commerce world. It is feature rich in terms of its functionality. It has powerful analytics for you as a business, and it is suited, as I said earlier on, is suited to the first time user. Equally as well, it's important if starting out, there's a low level of investment involved with Shopify. Woocommerce, it's part of WordPress. Many of you may have heard of WordPress, some of you may have not. It's a free plugin, and we'll cover plugin later on, but it's an extension effectively that can be integrated into WordPress. It's easy, reasonably easy to install, and it's reasonably cheap as well to build. There's a rich choice of features and plugins that we will look at as well in terms of the integrations available for business. And it's very secure, and it's very secure when it's done properly. And I've emphasized that deliberately. Like anything in terms of security for your mobile phone, for your online banking, anything that you do, even locking your front door, if you don't do it properly, it won't be secure. Important to note, whilst I've covered two of the e-commerce solutions here, there is a proliferation of e-commerce solutions out there. There are other choices, but these two would be the ones that I would recommend and that I would work with daily with clients and businesses on a regular basis. Practical considerations and setup steps to set up your first e-commerce store. And what we're going to look at here is okay, we're 101, so we're really at ground level here. You're getting online. Have you got a website domain? Okay, what is the name? Is it available? And if it is available, I would recommend you get the .co.uk and the .com for protection of your name and your domain whilst being on the internet. Moving forward, when you buy your domain, you can buy that from likes of Google Domains or 123reg, and many of these suppliers, they do have web hosting packages when you buy your domain. But I would underline the point of, there's various levels of web hosting, and make sure it's fit for purpose. And when I say fit for purpose is you want to make sure that you've got hosting that caters for the demand that your website and your e-commerce store is going to have. Because if you have an inadequate level of web hosting, if you have a significant amount of people on your website, there could be problems with people getting access, with loading pages.
Could I come in on that point, if you wouldn't mind? Could I come in there? Because I think it's a really important one. Let's say you're back to the first time you've had a physical presence like a shop or a garage or a grocery store, and you're now switching your model like many did in the last 6 months. See this one about hosting where you don't really know anything about this, or you start to talk about the different packages and the transactions. Like if you're a shop, let's say a grocer's, and you want to then to flip your model to a grocery delivery within a 25-kilometer radius, how would you know which hosting package to go for?
Well, I would always look and look in your catchment area first and foremost. So you'd have an idea if you've got a bricks and mortar store. You'll have an idea of your footfall, your transactions from the store, and average purchases, average customers. You'll have some idea. So I would use that as a parameter. If you don't have an online proposition, then you're going to have no idea what the opportunity is going to be. in terms of, okay, how many people are going to buy online, what the opportunity is going to be. So I would use your shop knowledge to aid the decision making, to make an informed decision on the level of hosting you may need. So I would look at your footfall, your transaction, your till receipts, your revenue and your sales that you have on a weekly, monthly, and a quarterly basis, and then work from that to try and forecast and make an informed decision to say, okay, will this package of hosting facilitate, X amount of visitors per week, per month, per quarter, per year? That's actually going to be on the e-commerce store and browsing your content, browsing your products, and buying your product from you. So if you have that information, I would say, Kieran, refer to that and use that as a barometer, and use that to your advantage in making that decision. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Content and product. So really and truly, we've done the basics there in terms of the domain and the hosting. There's going to be some preparation required in terms of, okay, the product listings that you have, the imagery, the descriptions, the price points, and there's going to be a bit of preparation on that in terms of getting all of that ready. Imagery, if there's video as well, but we will take a look at the content preparation and what that involves in terms of getting your content, your products onto an e-commerce store shortly. Fulfillment, and when I say fulfillment is, okay, when you get your orders, are they in stock? Are they not in stock? And what's the logistics in terms of getting them processed through from the e-commerce store in terms of delivering that out to a customer? Is there drop shipping? Drop shipping, I mean, as you're fulfilling the order in terms of taking the order receipt on your e-commerce store, but maybe you have a third-party supplier who will send that directly to the customer, as opposed to sending it from the supplier to you, the retailer, then to the customer. It's actually the supplier that's going to ship it directly to the customer. And then delivery. There are complex rules. Well, don't necessarily have to be complex, but there's the availability of different rules and settings that you have for considering shipping to a customer. And we're gonna delve a little bit deeper into the content, the fulfillment, and the delivery, and some of the practical elements that I would be recommending. So firstly, we're going to look at Shopify. And what we're looking at here for Shopify, this is after you've created an account, this is your main dashboard. And this is what you will see for the first time when you log in. And on the left-hand side here, we see the core navigation. And the core navigation there is self-explanatory. You'll see the different areas that are available to you as a user and for you to create your content and your online store. What we have here on the right-hand side is a systematic stepped approach in creating your online store. So you've got your add your product, you've got your theme being is the style guide that you prefer. Now with Shopify, they will give you various, for want of a better word, templates for you to choose that are conventional templates that work for e-commerce. Each of them will have a different style, a different visual representation, and really they're all conventional, so you can't really go wrong with the choice of the themes that's going to be there. It's really then down to a personal and an individual and a business choice as to which one you choose. Nextly, we see here is adding your domain. Now, each of these steps are all, once you click into them, and we're going to look at product in a moment, they're a stepped process and tells you exactly what you need to do in setting up each respective area. And I'll drill a little bit deeper on that with the product element in a moment. Equally, at the bottom here, we've got setup payments. Now, in this particular example, there's 4 steps, and you can see from the 4 steps, there's 3 green ticks. That means that those have been done in this particular example. And this is a client that I'm working with at the moment that have 3 of their steps. They're a very advanced stage. And really what we're looking at now is we're going to be configuring the domain and ultimately moving to a go live on the internet. What do we see here? Again, this is a little bit more detail on the same menu. We've got some options here. When you're setting up, you can do tests, make sure that from a user experience, that when the customer is purchasing, that everything is working as intended. So you can do dry runs of customer purchases that are really test runs. There's also more functionality here. If you have a Facebook business page, you can integrate in the Facebook Messenger, which is directly on to your e-commerce store. And that's a great tool for lead generation, because customers, when they're on shopping for the first time, and particularly if you've got, this is a new e-commerce venture for the business, having that as a chat tool and having that functionality there for your customers is a great resource, because obviously then That feeds into your phone, feeds into Facebook, and it gives you so much in terms of resources and communication options with your new customers, or indeed your existing customers. Moving on in terms of product. Now, the menu I showed you a moment ago, this is just an example here. When you click in, you can add a product to your e-commerce store. And what we're looking at here at the top is, okay, you've got your product title, you've got your description, you can format that information accordingly. You've got your media, which would be your images that you can drop in there in terms of the formatting of those images, and you can add bulk images in there as well from your desktop. In terms of pricing, you've got your price parameters as well in terms of what that price is going to be. Also, what we have here is your product type, so you can set your types in this particular instance here. It tells you here on screen. You've got, okay, in this instance, it could be a shirt. You've got your vendor, which is your supplier in terms of the brand. It could be Nike. And then you've got your collections. Now, also, you've got your product tags. So this process is just if you are setting and implementing your product manually, line by line, image by image, and each respective product individually. There are other ways of doing that, and we will take a look at it, but this is just showing you, hopefully, and giving you an insight and giving you confidence as to it's a stepped process. Follow the prompts on screen, follow the logical navigation that the system is telling you to set up.
I like that, Darren. I like that. I like the way you have this done, and you have really broken this down, and I'm not anxious about this, the way you've laid this out. I also like the way you had there about a test run. Does the test run, do you go through the actual payment on the test run?
Yeah, many of the payment providers, they will give you, once it's integrated and you've signed off on your payments, which we'll cover off in a few moments as well, yeah. It will let you do test transactions. So all that is doing is making sure that the payment integration is put into the e-commerce store. Yeah. You as a business, you as an individual are walking the journey as a customer in a test environment. Yeah. So therefore, you're just testing the credentials, validating the credentials that everything is working, everything is in place, and everything is as it should be.
Yeah, no, I'm liking this, Darren. I can follow this. This is good.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Moving on, the inventory again is the detail behind the products and the inventory that you have. You've got an SKU, which is a stock keeping unit. You will have barcodes there as well. Let me see, I've just got an over eager little animation there. On the right there of the inventory, you've got barcodes. So many retailers will have barcodes and they will have identifiers for their products. And equally here, it's important to note that you can control the quantities. So you can add stock levels in there, and then it will show when you run out of stock. So if you have 10 items, and for every transaction that goes through, it will count back. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, and ultimately show out of stock eventually if you want to set it up that way. Equally, there's more depth here in terms of the weight of the product, and that can be entered in as well. And at the very bottom, you'll have different variants, like, for instance, as it tells you here on the screen, if it's a pair of shoes, you will have, say, different sizes. If you're a butcher's, you're going to have different weights. You're going to have different options to choose from. Can be as broad and as varied as you want, and the tools are here to make your product or service very detailed for the customer. Moving on to products, and staying with Shopify, we've looked at a manual process of adding products individually, which we've just covered. Now, for those businesses and individuals that maybe have a larger proposition and larger portfolio of products, there are other options in terms of smarter ways of doing this. And this is really what we're looking at here again is Shopify. And what we've got here is an import tool that is on Shopify. And effectively what this is, and you'll see I've circled it here on the screen, Shopify gives you a CSV format. A CSV format, some of you may go, what's that? It's very similar to Excel, only it's a different format. And when you're bulk uploading, you're adding files to any e-commerce store, they're going to ask you for a CSV format. So what you can be working off there is a standard Excel document. And when your file save as, you can save that as a CSV format. So we will take a look at that, but what Shopify gives you here is a template to start with. And with that template, you populate the content, and it shows you exactly what you need to put in. Some of it's mandatory, some of it's optional. And if we have time, perhaps we could just take a quick look at that as well. And once your template and once your stock file is ready, you can add the file on screen here, add the file, upload it from your computer, and it will ask you if you've got content on there already, do you want to overwrite current products? Now that's an important area because you could do this for the first time and update all your products on your e-commerce store. Next week, tomorrow, next month, your products are going to change. Your suppliers may have put price increases in place that you maybe need to increase all your prices. You may have products that are maybe end of life. So what you're going to do is you're going to go back to your master template. And I would always recommend with your master template that you date stamp it. So the CSV file would be business name, online products, and have a date. And then every time you update that, you update the date. So then you're working off the current updates that you have, plus it gives you the benefit of having an archive that you know exactly the changes you've made to your online store at particular dates and times. So it's a really, really clever tool. And the benefits of this is speed. So once you have the template set up, it's a simple process of updating, adding, changing, deleting, and bulk upload, add file, off you go, done. Staying with products, we've been very much led with Shopify, which is a DIY, for want of a better word, entry-level e-commerce solution. We move on to Woocommerce now, and what I said earlier on was this would be a moderate to expert level. And what we've got here in terms of the products, we still have the import option. And the import option here, we're looking at Woocommerce. We're in the managed area for any Woocommerce e-commerce store that there is. This is the menu on the left. We've got the tools in the bottom left. And again, we've got an import process. And again, we see that terminology CSV. So, you know, if you've done the work and if you start off with Shopify and you've done the groundwork in terms of your CSV formatting, that same document can be used should you decide in the future to change from Shopify to Woocommerce. There may be some slight formatting changes you may need to do, but by and large, you will be able to still use that data. Delivery is a crucial point as well, which we're going to look at. Now, we'll look at Woocommerce in this instance for delivery. And what we're looking at here is the management section. So behind the scenes of any store, you've got a shipping and a delivery. Now, shipping is a term used by and large in e-commerce, but shipping is known as delivery. We will all know delivery, and we'll probably resonate more with delivery, the term delivery. And let me just close that down. And what we've got here in this particular instance is, okay, if we're only going to deliver to customers in Northern Ireland, we can be very prescriptive with that. So what we've set here is a shipping zone. Now, the shipping zone means that we only deliver, in this instance, we only deliver to Northern Ireland. And we will all know that Northern Ireland addresses all start with BT. So what we have, if you look closely, we have a BT postcode with an asterisk. Now, what we're doing here is setting a rule that will show on the front end of the e-commerce store that the customer will see that when you're putting in your details and you're buying something from the e-commerce store, you have to put in your address. So if you don't put in a BT postcode, it's going to come up that we don't deliver, and there'll be an on-screen prompt accordingly. Now, we follow this chain of thought. We move on to shipping methods, and then we can be very prescriptive in terms of setting our charges for delivery in Northern Ireland. So we can be very confident to say, okay, we've got the rules in place, we've applied them on our e-commerce store. We're going to set a standard fee of £10 for delivery for any address in Northern Ireland. We can confidently do that, and that will update automatically on the e-commerce store, update all your listings, and it'll be visible to the customer when they're making that purchase online. Equally, we don't want to just look at Northern Ireland. We can look at other areas beyond Northern Ireland. And when I said at the very start, if you cast your mind back, I said about complex rules. Maybe that's the wrong word. Maybe it just gives you options. It gives you options that you can configure very, very effectively for your audiences. So if you're operating in Northern Ireland, if you've got customers in the Republic of Ireland, you've got customers in England, Scotland, and Wales, well, guess what? The rest of the world, you can be very prescriptive and set up another shipping zone Now, in this case, I probably should have named this Ireland, but hopefully you see the pattern here. The pattern is, okay, this is Ireland, the Republic of Ireland. So the shipping methods, in this instance, we look at Clare. Now, if we said we wanted to ship to Clare, what we can do is, okay, we're going to ship to Clare, but we can be very prescriptive with selecting different areas, Cork, Donegal. Each of these different delivery areas are likely to incur different costs. Therefore, you can configure the costs according to the county and be very granular about that. Equally, you can go a step further and you can be very prescriptive and say, I want to charge different rates in different postcodes, because different postcodes, depending upon your delivery and how you're going to get there, different postcodes might be further away. So you can be very prescriptive. And where these rules then come into play is when the customer's buying on the e-commerce store, they've selected your product, they've added it to the basket, they're in the basket level now, they're putting in their delivery detail, or sorry, their home address. And once they put in the home address, the postcode will be there, the county will be there, the full details. The system is clever enough to pick up, okay, that's a BT postcode. In the previous example, it'll be £10 home delivery. If it's a Clare, County Clare, and you have, say, £50 in here, then £50 will show as a delivery charge to that customer. So the configurations you can do for shipping and transport are very comprehensive, but they're very easy in terms of, like you can see here quite quickly, how straightforward this is in setting this up. Moving on to payments. And what we're looking at here is Shopify. Shopify, if you cast your mind back there a few slides ago, we were looking at the main menu when you log into Shopify, and payments was on there as one of the 4 options, if you recall. And what we've got here is, okay, these are the payment providers that are available for you as a business and for you in your e-commerce store. And it's shown here on the screen, okay, these are the accepted payments that can be implemented onto your e-commerce store. Now we've got some of the main ones here. Well, and arguably we've got all of the main ones, should I say. You've Visa, you've MasterCard, you've American Express, you've Apple Pay, you've Google Pay. Now the latter 2, Apple Pay and Google Pay, would be really, really key drivers. And why I say key drivers, it would be most people now, most consumers are mobile led. We all have mobile devices. So the Apple phones and the Google and Samsung phones, they're all configured for easy payments. Now, bear in mind, most consumers and most websites and e-commerce stores, the industry average now in terms of visitors is 75 to 85% of all visitors are now on a mobile device. So the Google Pay and the Apple Pay are great opportunities for integration. Moving on, equally, we've got in Woocommerce, you've got options here as well for Payment Sense, which is another payment provider. You've got finance integrations and equally Bax Transfer. And what we're looking at here, this is another client working closely with, and we can see in the center of that screen there's a purple little icon there. The purple icons denote the payment methods that are available in this particular instance for this particular client and e-commerce store. Equally on the right hand side here, you can see, again, I keep coming back to the stepped process. You know, if it's the big thing here is taking time to review what the screen's telling you. Take your time, review it, and digest what it's asking you to do. Moving on, I want to look at some smart tools to save time. And what we're going to ask a question here is, you know, plugins. Plugins is a terminology used in the e-commerce world. Some may have heard it, some may not. Kieran, I'll ask you there. You know, would you have heard of plugins before?
Yeah, generally I was associated more with WordPress because there may have been perceived to be the market leader. But yes, yeah, no, I'm familiar with plugins. All right, yeah. Okay.
So what we have here, we're looking at WooCommerce. So what are we looking at here? Again, we're in the signed in area as you as a business, so a potential client. And on the left hand side, we've got the menu again. We've got plugins. Now, what are we looking? What does plugins mean? And really, to put this into context, plugins are effectively, if you think about your mobile phone for a moment and you think about your Apple device, you've got an Apple store where you can download apps. If you have a Google device, you will go to the Play Store to download apps. So this is the equivalent, plugins are the equivalent in the e-commerce world of what I've just detailed there in terms of your mobile phone. These are feature-rich plugins, apps for what, if you want to put it into different terminology, that you can apply to your e-commerce store. Now, crucially, there's as many free plugins as there are paid for plugins. So what I'm saying is here, to be cost effective with your store, you can go in and search here. You can see there's featured, there's popular, there's recommended. The system is even clever enough to know and makes recommendations what it feels will benefit your e-commerce store. And there's such a choice of really feature-rich plugins that you can use, free of charge, by the way. Moving on to Shopify. Shopify has got the same options available in terms of their app store. And what we're looking at here, I've just done a search payment, but to put it into the broader context, you can see there on that navigation, on that menu, just the sheer scale of available apps or plugins, as I call them, and an e-commerce world that are available for you to integrate into your e-commerce store. Again, there'll be free options, there'll be paid for options as well. Common pitfalls, and this is one that you know I'm passionate about as well, because I see this happening, and you know, and hopefully share some of the benefit that I've, some of the experience that I have when starting out in e-commerce. Very, very important to look at market research. Know your customer, know your product, know your competitors. Really know your competitors. Know who's online and who's doing what. Your pricing, your branding, your proposition. That sounds, this is all 101, you know, ground level, but I mean, there's many businesses, many individuals that just rush into e-commerce without really giving some thought to this. Product listings, we've looked at product listings and the level of work required. You can do that individually, or you can do that, you know, with bulk uploads and being clever with CSV formats. But really think about the information you need for your products. You're going to need pricing, you're going to need descriptions. Are there variations, different sizes, different colors? Images, and we'll touch on images as well. Think about the content that you're writing, because that's going to feed into, now I'll put this, I should have maybe expanded this terminology, but that is SEO stands for search engine optimization. So that's basically being found on Google, your content being indexed and found on Google. And equally, is it a stock item, your product, or is it not a stock item? And is there drop shipping? All really viable considerations. Delivery costs, we've looked at delivery costs in depth, and hopefully that gives you a better insight, but consider your delivery costs. What is your break-even point? Have you got some margin of profit on your delivery costs? Ensure that they're accurate, because if they're not inaccurate, what that's going to do is erode your profit margins. And worse still, if there's no delivery costs, it's going to be a bad experience. Website maintenance, if we look at website maintenance, shiny new stores, they don't stay shiny forever. It's like a new car, you have to maintain it. You know, imagery, content, all of that needs to be maintained. So, you know, yes, whilst you launch your e-commerce store, it's important to schedule in time, maybe once a month, once a week, once a quarter, review the site, be critical, new images, new content, new offers. Continuing the thought of common pitfalls, don't reinvent the wheel. As we talked about themes earlier on, the choices are available there for conventional e-commerce design, whether it be Shopify, whether it be Woocommerce, it'll give you different options to choose from. So follow the conventional design. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. This might sound counterintuitive, but you know, doing it yourself, DIY, you know, to take on an e-commerce project, yeah, it's a learning curve. But there's plenty of resources online, plenty of expertise out there. The college offers services as well and support. So, you know, you're not alone and you don't have to do it on your own. And equally, finally, demand generation. Having a brand new store, e-commerce store online, don't forget, it's only as good if people know about it. So consider your awareness, customer awareness, your marketing, your sales tactics, and your planning. So finally, just to summarize, what we looked at, Shopify, it's a DIY solution, do it yourself, very much a stepped process that can be done by you as an individual or indeed your business. Woocommerce will be moderate to expert level, and you know, in most cases you may need a more experienced professional to help you with that. Consider your product process in terms of your content and the detail you have, and the import processes, whether that be a manual line by line, product by product, or indeed the bulk import process that we shared earlier on in the webinar. Imagery is an important one. Just to touch on imagery, when you're putting imagery onto any e-commerce store, it will ask you about aspect ratios. We'll not go near aspect ratios today, but imagery, if you stick with a 900 by 900 pixels, now what does that mean, Darren? That is a perfect square. So it just means when you're putting on an image, if it's in a perfect square format, then your images is going to be consistent, they're going to be user-friendly, and they're going to look good as well, as opposed to having different sizes and a whole mismatch of imagery. We've also covered plugins and extensions, and there's a broad variety of really feature-rich plugins that you can avail of that are free, or indeed in instances paid for as well. And finally, last but not least, awareness and demand generation. Stores don't stay shiny forever. You need to maintain them. You need to tell your customers, existing customers and your new customers, that you have an online e-commerce store. You have another way to fulfill your service or sell your product. If nobody knows about it, well, you're starting off on the wrong foot. So really, on that note, awareness and demand generation, really important. Thank you. Thank you everyone for your time. Hopefully that's been useful for you, and happy to take any questions.
Great, Darren. Yeah, thanks very much, Darren. That was super. Well rounded off there in terms of you covered a lot of ground. The title of this session, Darren, was First Steps in Setting Up Your Online Business, and certainly is the first respondent to you. You've managed to do that, and I'll tell you what you did there, Darren. You actually broke that down and you called it a stepped process. And for me, you took away the fear. I'm not trading online myself at the moment. I have done in the past, but you're taking away the fear. And when I think of the businesses that I've worked with in the last 6 months and many of my colleagues, one of the key questions is, how do I switch to being online? Because you used the term about bricks and mortar. So we've been in contact with artists, with fitness instructors, with yoga teachers, with people who specialize in well-being, and craft producers and greengrocers, and you use the term butchers as well. And in the last 6 months, they've all moved online, probably to a mixture actually of what you put up there. So first and foremost, I got that today. I really like the way you went through, and I did stop you at the time about the Shopify steps, and maybe that's me just as if I was thinking I was an SME. And I know manually I have done that before. When you actually go in, it is can be a very laboring process. But you explained that, and the fact that you can do a test run. Obviously, at SRC, we could help anyone with that process. So there was a lot of good, really nuggets of information there. You explained what the CSVs, and we talked in the past that if you've never done this before, if you had an Excel spreadsheet, you need to list your products and services. You talked about the bulk import process. There, I can see there are some really good questions here, Darren, if you're okay to take them. So one or two I was going to ask myself, but I'm glad to see they're in the questions Aisling has posted for us. So if you're okay to take about 3 questions here, Darren. The first one is Shopify a fixed fee and a percentage per transaction?
Yes, a fixed fee. There's 3 or 4 variations you can take with Shopify, and I think the pricing there you will see on Shopify, I think they're priced in US dollars, so I think it's coming out. The entry level price point there is about $28 to $29 per month, and that sets you up for a certain amount of products and certain amount of services.
So £20 a month, let's say 25 sterling a month.
Yeah,
give or take.
Sterling, you're probably talking 23, 25 pounds, ish per month.
Right, and then what about the percentage? What about the fee per transaction?
Well, you got transactions there. Remember, we looked at the different options you had there. I think there was a set fee there of 2.2%.
2.2
on credit cards. Yeah. But in terms of those other payment gateways, if you're setting up, like Bax, for instance, or Google Pay, it depends on the volume that you have. There would be a fixed fee for those respectively. Yes.
Would it be less than 2.2%? Or more? or in and around that?
I think what they do, the way they set the pricing up is depend on your volume. So the volume that's coming through, it'll be dictated by that. But I know that the set fee there is at 2.2% plus 20 pence, I believe.
Okay. So you made a really good point, and there's another question in relation to just that, Alva. You were talking about the growth of mobile phones, and you were making the point there about like 75% of people, or 85%, you said, coming in will have a mobile phone.
Yes.
And what would be really interesting in when we look at 2020, Darren, would be how has the transaction process changed? Obviously, there are trends, and then there's necessity. Now, necessity through what's happened in the last 6 months through social distancing and keeping our distance and non-touch. A lot of people will just automatically now, with their mask on, and they may have their gloves on, but will just do that and as a payment, as has been happening through different payment structures. But now more people are very, very conscious of that. Is that for a small shopkeeper for the first time? Is that hard to embrace, to actually be able to take payments like this?
No, it's not, because if you cast our mind back there on setting up the payments, there's probably another area there that I could have delved into, but I was mindful of the content. When you integrate your payment options, there's an area in there called View Transactions, and you can see exactly, okay, Kieran has purchased X, Y, and Z, and he's paid X amount of pounds. In the system there, you can see exactly the purchases being made online, and you can reconcile that with your bank. So your online banking, you can go, obviously doing your bookkeeping, but in real time there on Shopify, you can view the transactions that's occurring on your site at any given time. It will give you transactions. It'll give you archive transactions as well. So you have a full record there. And the mobile experience, it's worth pointing out as well, Kieran, that it's a great point that visitor, that online visitor there who's posed that question. All these conventional e-commerce platforms, they're all mobile friendly. So in the e-commerce world and the online world, they're called responsive. So depending upon the device you're using, whether it be a mobile device, whether it be a tablet, or whether it be a desktop, what's crucial here is for the customer or for the visitor, depend upon the device you're on, these e-commerce solutions respond accordingly. They're dynamic. They will change depending upon where the visitor's coming from. But crucially, they are a conventional design that is led first by mobile first design, because that's where the visitors are. As I said, the figures speak for themselves in terms of the amount of visitors mobile. Okay,
the second question, Darren, is will it, when you're talking about the ordering and your stock levels, I think again it might have been Shopify, will it trigger a reorder at a certain stock level prior to run out?
Come again with that one, Kieran?
So I think the question is, it says, will it trigger a reorder at a certain stock level prior to run out? So say you have, in your online store, you have 10 items and you get down to 4 items left. Will that automatically trigger a reorder level?
No,
it's like a warning sign, I suppose, an alert sign.
Yeah.
I think what the person who posted this question is asking.
In the dashboard, in behind the scenes, when you're managing your e-commerce store, when your stock is depleted, it will tell you, it will give you an alert. So that alert can be sent to your email, or that alert will pop up when you're in managing your store. It'll come up as a very prominent, it'll tell you that you're out of stock. Now, you can configure your stock levels that, as we showed earlier on, they will diminish with each individual order, or what you can configure that setting to say, okay, you've got 10 items of stock, you sell 10, then all of a sudden you get down to 0. The settings can be changed to on back order. So if you have it on back order, that means to the customer and to the business, firstly, the customer tells the customer straight away, okay, it's on back order. We don't have it in stock, but we're ordering more in. And what you can configure the system to do is to tell the customer on the screen, okay, if you know that you get deliveries every 7 to 10 days and you run out of stock, you can say, okay, on back order, available for delivery in 7 to 10 days.
Yeah. Okay. And I get that. I think the question probably was from a stock perspective. Management was before you get to 0 is when if you have 10 items, you get down to 3. Yeah. Do you, as the owner of the shop, do you get can you set up that you get an alert?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Now our next question is one that I was going to ask you about.
Kieran, sorry to come in. Kieran, if I just come in on you for a second, it's worth noting as well that that's only one way of doing it. You know, there's businesses that I'm working with that there's two chains of thought. You can show your stock to say, okay, this is in stock, you've 10, you've 20, whatever that is, respectively.
Yeah.
Equally, and there's as many of these businesses that do it another way, that they don't show their stock, that they will not show their stock levels. They show they know that they can get the item, but it's about their process. They will take the order and then they will fulfill the order. But the important thing is, if you're doing it that way and you're not showing a stock level, you don't show your stock quantities. But the important bit is, if you're not showing it, you have to tell the customer from the outset what the expected lead time is. Because if it's not a stock item and you're ordering it in from a supplier, then it has to come logistically from that supplier to you, to the customer, if you're not doing drop shipping. So there's two ways of doing that, Kieran. I just maybe want to point that out.
No, and that's a very good point, and I think that gets into the intricacies of doing this at a more advanced level, which is something, again, I suppose, at the college that we could help businesses. So could I move to our last question, Darren? And it's really just one that I was going to ask as well. What about Stripe?
Stripe? What about Stripe?
That's just the question. It is, what about Stripe? I presume the questioner was asking, as opposed to using, we didn't mention PayPal there, but as opposed to using, certainly it's come to, I'm aware that it's come to prominence in the last 12 months. Yeah. And I know of a few businesses, actually adventure companies, I'm aware of that use Stripe, and tour guides. I know of a couple of tour guides that use Stripe. So, I mean, is it feasible for a small business to do that?
Yeah, it is. No, listen, I said that in jest. You know, I couldn't resist. No, listen, Stripe has made massive inroads in the e-commerce world, and a lot of e-commerce businesses and new businesses are embracing Stripe, and Stripe is now becoming a real player in the marketplace. And you know, what we're seeing there for Stripe is, the way they're set up, you're taking payments online. So effectively, for instance, Stripe fees would be, if you're using a EU card to make a payment, or take receipt of a payment, you're sitting there at 1.4% plus 20p per transaction. Now compare that to PayPal, you're 2.9% plus 30p. So Stripe all of a sudden are making that more cost effective. However, let's put that into context. The 1.4% plus 20p is for EU cards. If you're operating at the global level, then the fees become more level, whereby non-EU cards are 2.9% plus 20p. So it's closer then to what PayPal is, in terms of PayPal being 2.9% and 30p. So if you're operating in a domestic market, I said domestic market, now I know
UK and Ireland, let's take UK and Ireland there.
You know, you're working on that, so your Stripe would be a cost-effective, very smart, very efficient way of moving towards your payment provider. I'm not endorsing them, but there are others. But Stripe, more and more customers, and I've one client at the moment there that's migrating away from one of the larger, more sort of conventional, well-known, if I could say that, established players in the market. They're migrating away from them to Stripe, because of the advantages of Stripe from a user experience, customer experience, and the features and the cost efficiencies that Stripe would bring to an e-commerce store.
Yeah, Darren, that's all the questions that we have posted for today. Just in terms of a summary, again, I want to say thanks very, very much. That was great, Darren. You know, and what we set out to do, Darren, in these webinars is to show people that we can help, and that to get over the barriers. And for me, you've been able to do that. You've given us a great insight there into both Shopify and Woocommerce. And I'll say this again, for me, you've broken down that, and you've taken the fear away, and you've emphasized you can test this, and there's help out there. And I know in a pre-run conversation with Sarah, we said you just got to go out and do it. You got to go out and you got to test it. You know. Brave. There's one thing I would like to do, and I think I'm going to be handing over to Laura. Laura, you're very, very welcome. Laura, we need to turn your microphone on there. I'm going to hand over to Laura. Laura's going to talk a little bit about the support that we offer at business support at Southern Regional College to help businesses. So Laura, I'm going to do that, and then I'm not going to talk anymore. So Laura, you're going to close out the session. Darren, I want to say certainly thanks very much from all of us at Southern Regional College. That was great. And Laura, it's over to you.
Thanks very much, Kieran, and thanks, Darren, for that presentation. It was really interesting. I just wanted to come in quickly. You'll see a slide up there with various supports that the college can offer that you're probably not aware of. So I just wanted to run through them quickly just to see if any of them might be of interest to you. So first of all, we have a skills focused programme, and that's a training programme. It's fully funded by the Department for the Economy to provide non-mandatory training. So we have a full suite of courses available for industry across different areas, and that is 100% funded at the minute by the department. It was 75% funded, and now it's gone up to 100% funded in response to COVID. So if there's any training needs there, it's a great programme. And then on the innovation side, we have you can access up to 60 hours of mentoring support on a one-to-one basis if you're looking to do something innovative, a new product, process or service, and that can be done virtually or on site at the college. And similarly, the innovation voucher programme then is also another way of businesses to avail of R&D opportunities and resources for innovative solutions for businesses. It's 100% funded as well, although the VAT is payable in that. So that's it's £5,000 worth of support, and the VAT's payable on top of that. And then if you're looking to do like a longer term project or something a wee bit more substantial, and you're looking for somebody to come into your business and help you with that, then there's programs through Fusion and KTP that can offer high caliber graduate into your business, and that the fee for that graduate is partially funded by the KTP or the Fusion program. So we have, there's HLAs as well. There's a wide variety of supports, and probably people aren't aware that the college can offer this type of support for businesses. So it's just to give you an overview, a quick overview of what we can offer. But if you have any needs, or you think that you can avail of any of those programs, then feel free to contact us, and we'd be really happy to help you. And we're also hosting some more webinars coming up that might be of interest. We've one this afternoon, which is what we do and how we can help you, and it's really an overview of what we do and some of the success stories that we've had. There's different guest speakers coming in and that, and it'll be really interesting to hear their stories and how they've navigated through COVID as well. So you can check out our social media channels for more information on what's coming up. And I hope that you've enjoyed today's presentation. I certainly found it really, really interesting, and we'll be sending out evaluations at the end. So if you'd be grateful to get your feedback on that, and hopefully you'll be able to tap into some more of the webinars coming up soon.
Yes.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.